Вы ненавидите американцев, потому что они злые капиталисты, это верно?
What do Russians think
Да
about
нет, а
communism?
чего? Тут самое главное, что есть американцы, а есть всякие Трампы и прочие товарищи. Так вот, американцев я уважаю и люблю, а вот их правительство как-то что-то как-то не очень.
Ну, смотрите, я вообще не шарю в коммунизме. Можете объяснить в двух словах, что это такое?
Это когда ты отдаешь всю землю крестьянам, а ничего не зарабатываешь, и все живут хорошо, пенопласт молочный, люди 3 метра рост, а все довольны. Войны
Okay, he was based as fuck up until that last part. It was pretty funny though.
нет, голода нет, дети рождаются сразу 18-летние и готовы работать на заводе.
Вы ненавидите американцев, потому что они злые капиталисты, это так?
Да.
Нет, это просто другие люди, вот и все, другой менталитет у них.
Guy's a
Они
nerd.
Несколько веков воспитывались в капитализме, в этом есть свои минусы, есть свои плюсы, но ненавидеть мне не за что их.
Вот я вообще не разбираюсь в коммунизме. Можете объяснить, что это такое?
Я абсолютно также в нем не разбираюсь. Мне кажется, вот знаете, Ленин, да, был. И похожее слово коммунизм, что такое, это все, что я знаю.
Что такое коммунизм?
Коммунизм, ну, насколько я знаю, в целом это хорошая идея.
If one of them says communism is when the government does stuff, and the more government does stuff, the more communism it is, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
В том, чтобы люди не нуждались в деньгах и жили как в равноправии и трудились на благо друг друга. Но то, что мы знаем о коммунизме, да, это, наверное, худшее проявление.
А к северокорейцам?
Нормально. Боюсь просто сказать что-то, а то вдруг.
Какое у вас отношение к американцам?
У меня положительное ко всем. И к американцам, и не к американцам. И к местным.
А европейцев вы ненавидите, потому что они злые
А
капиталисты.
европейцев тоже люблю. Всех капиталистов люблю. И капитализм это классно.
No, it's not true, absolutely. And honestly, I don't even have specific thoughts about American people. I just think they're absolutely the same people as we are.
Что такое коммунизм? Я вообще не разбираюсь, серьезно.
Ну, коммунизм — это определенная, так сказать, структура государства, структура мышления. Вот, соответственно, в России это единственное место, где это удалось сделать на целых 70 лет. Но, как видите, это что-то как-то не прокатило.
В России добились коммунизма?
Ну, такое было ощущение, что добились, но в итоге...
При капитализме какие условия?
Хуже, безусловно. Да. Все общество потребления. Да. Ничего не принадлежит людям. Ужасно.
Isn't it like fucking? Isn't it literally that like what was it, chat? It's like 70% of. No, that number's too high. What percentage of Russians want to go back to communism now, or to go back to the USSR days? 99%. Someone just said 99%. Russia versus Ukraine. More Russians want the Soviet Union and communism back amid continued tensions. A higher percentage of Russians regret the collapse of the Soviet Union than at any other time since 2004, according to a new survey published Wednesday by the Levada Center, a Russian nonprofit organization. The Soviet Union fell apart around 27 years ago when the then Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev resigned. The country eventually broke into 15 independent countries, including Russia, which had been in the seat of power today. Today, 60. Just kidding. Today, 66% of Russians surveyed say they regret the end of the Soviet Union and the fall of communism. Oh, 66, that's crazy. By the way, this isn't even necessarily a testament to the successes of communism, which, of course, was not implemented under the USSR, but more so a testament to the failures of capitalism, which has created an oligarch-ridden Russian economy. The democratization of the Russian markets is what it was called. No true communism? Lol. Oh, I didn't realize the USSR was a stateless, borderless, moneyless society. That's crazy. Wait, that's pretty tight, dude. Really? They did that? Kind of fucked up that America destroyed that then, huh? That's wild, dude. Wait, did someone ban him? Why did someone ban him? No, he probably was spamming and he got FOSSA botted. There's no way it would ban. Yeah, they fucking. Play Bug Snacks. Ed Sheeran. Oh, you hit with the link. Do they want communism back or just the union? It's probably a bit of both. I think some people want like global dominance that they had. They want like the hegemonic power back. It's the same thing with the East Germans. More have been voting for the far left party, Die Linke, for the past 10 years. Are there any totally socialist countries? No. Bad take, Hasan. Just stop talking already. What's the bad take? I wish USSR was truly egalitarian. If so, they would have helped de-escalate our country from this authoritarian. Dude, they literally didn't have freedom of speech. I mean, neither do you. But America is still the most liberated country as far as freedom of speech restrictions. That is, of course, if you're not a Palestinian activist. That's the one area where our freedom of speech rules do not work, or a Black Lives Matter activist, as a matter of fact, or if you advocate for any sort of marginalized identity or group, and you are your cause is for civil equality, justice, that sort of thing, then you don't necessarily have all that freedom of speech. Now, the government won't immediately lock you up for, having a conversation with your friends and family, or you might be able to say certain things and get away with it in the United States of America that you would not be able to in a place like China, for example. But don't act like we have incredible freedom of speech here when cops are just clapping fucking cheeks left and right for the past year continuously for people who are advocating for Black Lives Matter and advocating to defund the police and criticizing police brutality. So, kind of a weird take there. The Chaz walks of the USSR could run. Oh, shut up. Anyway, so we have freedom of speech except when it dissents against the government, which is the point of it always. Dope. Exactly. There are two different forms of control in the media, okay? You either have the neoliberal form of control, which at least creates the pretense of freedom, that you have a choice, but it fits a tidy, neat little neoliberal ideological box that is way more open-minded to, of course, far-right advocacy, because far-right advocacy does not challenge the interests of capital. As a matter of fact, fascism can protect the interests of capital in times when there's a lot of leftist mobilizing occurring, a lot of communism happening. Fascism can be seen by those who own capital as a liberating force to ensure that there is still that same order, that same hierarchy. Look no further than what happened in Nazi Germany, if you would want to understand what I mean here, and how many of these corporations ended up siding with the fascist regime because they did not want to be undermined by trade unionists and the communists, which would have perhaps taken away some of their profits. I mean, that's unacceptable. So who's really at fault here? I don't know. Probably the communists, as a matter of fact. So that's a reality. But ultimately, as I was saying, in the Western world where we have neoliberal capitalist freedoms, there is a neat little ideological box. The punishments are not as overt for going outside of that box. You can have, for example, someone like myself preach the ideas that are completely outside of mainstream politics, and I can do it freely as long as I am, making money for my capitalist masters still. and I'm a good little employee. And of course, there are still limitations to what I can and can't say. The very moment that you, of course, organize and it becomes a threat, then it's over. They take your microphone away, 100%. Now, so there's that reality as well. But in a more authoritarian country, dissent of this nature is not allowed. Political dissent like this is significantly limited, more limited than the United States of America. I can't get away with saying half the shit I say about Donald Trump and the American government, even on the internet, as I would in Turkey. Like, I would not be able to get away saying these sorts of things about Erdogan or uncovering certain things that Erdogan has done in Turkey, for example. It just would not happen. In America, you can do that. So that is a true freedom. That is a real freedom that America offers that does not exist. But as far as like the freedom to dissent or to protest, no, you don't get that in the United States of America either. There are still significant state consequences when you speak out against the state, whether it be the monopoly of violence that the state has. If you criticize that, or the way that the state uses violence, you criticize that, you're going to fucking be on the receiving end of some violence there. It's going to happen. You might even get arrested. Maybe not directly because you're protesting, but you'll get arrested for one reason or the other. Okay? You'll at the very least have your opportunities limited to you, significantly limited. In authoritarian states, on the other hand, you don't get to say these sorts of things out loud. But the difference then, or at least according to both Slavoj Žižek and Noam Chomsky, two men that never agree on anything with the exception of this, the enforcement of speech in authoritarian countries leads to people recognizing that they are being undermined, that their liberties are being undermined. It creates a more viable opposition as a consequence of that, because at least you know that you're being fed poison by the government in that circumstance. Whereas we here in the Western world believe that we have these incredible freedoms, and there's a true choice, especially in your media consumption, that like all of our media is not completely and neatly organized by those who own capital. So that's the difference there. And of course, I prefer to be here than somewhere like that. So, I do appreciate the free pornography. It's a big deal for me. But make no mistake, to assume that there is no control of information, or to assume that there is freedom of speech in one country over the other, well, that's not true. Both cultures, both attitudes, both organizations, both systems have different forms of control. We literally do have freedom of thought, man. Look at the hogs who can literally ignore wearing a mask, killing others because of it. Literally no repercussions with that shit. My friend, you are misunderstanding my point. I said far-right thoughts, or even fascism in certain circumstances, can be preferable to capital owners because it does not undermine the status quo. It does not undermine the pre-existing organization, the pre-existing hierarchy that we exist under. A big function of the media, whether you like to admit it or not, is to justify the cruelty that we experience under a capitalist organization of the economy. That does not disprove my point. I already addressed exactly what you said. The USSR was a flawed society with a lot of problems, but it's undeniable that it lifted millions of people out of poverty, and in my opinion, it's hypocritical of the U.S. to decry it as a genocidal nation, considering how it mass slaughters Native Americans, enslaved black people, and kills black and brown people across the globe in imperialist wars. Yeah. Note the context of the time in question. Obviously, they'd want USSR if Ukraine and Crimea was a part of the Union, etc. Also, nobody really wants USSR, but some type of social democracy, yes. Lived there for 23 years, grew up in the post-Soviet era, father's generation definitely didn't like it, especially as Middle Easterners. So this poll is baloney, especially when the older generation is against going back. No, I think this speaks to the younger generation. You're correct. I think it speaks to the needs of the younger generation because they feel like they've been fed a raw deal, and they have nostalgia for something that they've never actually experienced themselves personally. Also, AstroTigs, that what you're talking about is generational, or not generational. Sorry, what you're talking about completely changes with respect to whatever country you're referencing. And by the way, someone said that's because people in Russia benefited more. That's also wrong. There are plenty of satellite states that now prefer it, with the exception of Poland, of course. Like, obviously, with obvious exceptions, there are plenty of satellite states that were under the USSR that are now in a dire state of disrepair because they no longer have the umbrella, the protective umbrella of the USSR, and they were thriving to a certain degree under the USSR, but literally do not have that. I mean, we watched Kyrgyzstan, we watched that Kyrgyzstan town with Bald and Bankrupt together. Ukraine is not one of those places. I understand. Ukraine is not one of those places. Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania hate the USSR too. They're in NATO now. Oh, you mean to tell me that NATO nations hate the USSR? What? What a crazy revelation, dude. That's wild, man. Of course they hate the USSR. It just differs. I think it's silly to say like one way or the other, it's good or it's bad. When people say like, oh no, you're fucking wrong, it's actually really good. Or, oh no, you're fucking wrong, it's actually really bad. I find that to be a little silly. It's 100% bad or it's 100% good. Are you in favor of communism? I think communism is a great system of governance. I wish we had that. We're never going to achieve it, I don't think. But would you say no to a fucking moneyless, stateless, borderless society? I think it's a truly evolved society. I don't think that makes me a communist, but yeah, no, it's not like I don't have a problem with it. When people say I'm a communist, I don't give a shit. Like I don't say like, oh no, I'm not a fucking communist or whatever. That's because of what you said about them not transitioning well. There's no way you can say that the leaders of the empire didn't benefit way more than their colonies. I studied in Russia as an American. It's a utopia we can't achieve because we are too greedy. Yeah, that's the nature of man argument. It's bullshit. What's that famous fucking quote? Saying man is naturally greedy under a capitalist organization of the economy is like saying that man has naturally inhaled and has black lung when you in a coal mine. Isn't that what it is? I think it was. Wasn't it Marx? I fucking butchered it. Anyway, we'll get back to that. Basically, every time someone disagrees with you, you look down on them. You're just a bully. Good for you. Sometimes I'm baffled. No one should watch you as long as you are live. XQC himself is smarter / better than you because he reads the first letter of every sentence. can't tell if that's it's like a, is that like a juicer who's lost? I feel bad. Or did he write bug snacks? Oh, fuck you, man. You fucking bastard. All right, let's keep going.
For me, communism is something old and unsuitable for our modern world. It's something I wouldn't like to have in our country.
Наш менталитет — это коммунизм, верно?
На данный период, да, общество не успело перестроиться с 90-х, вот, и сейчас происходит расслоение. Старое поколение думает как коммунисты, а новое поколение, оно потерялось, я считаю, потому что мы родились на стыке капитализма и коммунизма, и мы вроде хотим помогать всем как альтруисты, но тем не менее иногда просим за это деньги.
В России какая-то вообще дикая абсолютно модель. Она и капиталистическая, не социалистическая, и как-то крайне ограничены свободы.
Как бы вы ее назвали одним словом?
Одним словом, но я бы назвал ее переходная к цивилизации, к цивилизованному обществу. Мы сейчас
То есть скоро будет все хорошо?
Ну, лет через 50, да, я думаю.
А что такое капитализм?
Капитализм, ну, я не экономист, думаю, что это когда власть основана на денежных отношениях, на рыночной экономике.
Коммунизм лучше капитализма?
Если смотреть со стороны экономики, то нет.
Почему нет?
Потому что в плане экономики, ну, как может быть план у экономики хороший? То есть, грубо говоря, это вот то, на чем поговорили.
There's no unplanned economy, for the record. It just doesn't exist. Unplanned economies do not exist on the planet as it is currently. Every part of the American economy is also planned, not to the same degree as like rationing, but there's always going to be adjustments. And there is no true capitalism either. People always fucking say, "Oh, true communism does not exist. It's never been created." Like people sarcastically say that. It's like, well, we've never also had true capitalism either. Just for the record, like, as a matter of fact, capitalism is always bailed out. Has always been historically bailed out by socialization efforts. If it wasn't for the welfare state, which a bunch of fucking lefties are literally against for this specific reason, we would have already arrived at the inherent contradictions within capitalism, destroying it from its within itself. Yeah, we got pretty close to real capitalism in the 30s. Yeah, that's precisely why true capitalism is the black market. That's precisely why the fucking idea that like we already have like a true capitalist country that's thriving is so fucking silly that I laugh at. 10K to have a baby born with debt, that's empire in decline shit. Bro, your chat just laughs at you? Yeah, I know. Always. Oh, that's precisely why I was saying that, like, listen, that's precisely why I was saying earlier that price gouging is inherently capitalist.
Опять же, как может быть план у экономики хороший? То есть, грубо говоря, это вот то, на чем погорел Советский Союз, на плану экономики. Вот другое дело, когда это смешивается. Опять же, можно в этом плане вспомнить про те же самые США, где это все гармонично. То есть там есть доля капитализма, есть доля каких-то социальных вещей, которые коммунистические абсолютно. И в итоге все это работает так, что страна живет.
Не, я считаю, просто американцы, китайцы поступили более интересно и сумели вовремя поменять свою модель и совместить эти две политические системы, и коммунизм, и капитализм, то есть такой коммунистический капитализм. Но все равно я за капитализм, нежели за коммунизм в любом проявлении его.
Но вообще коммунизм неплох в самой идее.
А он лучше капитализма?
Кому как? Я думаю, что нельзя сравнивать. Ну, как бы это разные течения.
Вы бы хотели родиться 50 лет назад при коммунизме?
People ask me if I read theory. I'm like, no, I made up all this stuff, dude. I was sitting on a hot couch one day, and I just came across it on my own in my mind processing powers.
Да.
А как сделать так, чтобы все были богатыми?
Ну, как, чтобы все были богатыми, такое невозможно, по сути. Но если есть закон, который соблюдают все, вот начиная от самого верху до самых низов, то, в общем-то, любой человек сможет что-то добиться, сможет стать богатым.
Такого, наверное, никогда не будет, что будут соблюдать.
Ну, в России, да.
It is impossible. You have just work hard to have a lot of money.
В теории можно обеспечить людям какую-то базовую модель потребления, но чтобы этот путь не был слишком сложным, да? Это получается такое некая уравниловка, то есть когда человеку нужно закрывать какие-то базовые потребности, да, и ходить на какие-то базовые культурные мероприятия, до этого уровня нужно сделать, чтобы легко можно было, да, допустим, каждый обычный там сотрудник какого-нибудь завода, условно говоря, мог себе позволить какие-то базовые потребности, да, жить в нормальной квартире, нормально питаться, нормально развлекаться.
У вас много денег?
Для студента Москвы, да, достаточно.
Продолжите фразу «я хочу много денег, потому что…»
Потому что хочу изменить этот мир.
Как бы его изменили?
Я
Сделали бы всех коммунистами?
Нет, я бы создавал новые рабочие места, а не жаловался.
Ну, представим, что если через 1000 лет общество будет идеальным, высоконравственным, талантливым, все люди будут красивыми, то да, будем при коммунизме.
5 лет слишком мало для построения коммунизма. И коммунизм еще никто не построил. Можно социализм там.
А китайцы?
Но у них же еще не коммунизм. Они его строят.
Может быть, через 100 лет мы будем жить в коммунистическом обществе. Как думаете?
Я думаю, что да, будет все развернуто примерно, и можно сейчас вот посмотреть, допустим, на Скандинавию, на скандинавские страны, и там все, по моему мнению, приобрело правильную форму. Но там правильная форма социализма, так скажем, то есть государство социальное.
Ага.
Ни Америку, ни Европу, вернее, ни Америку, ни Россию я не могу назвать социальным государством, где все для общества.
Явно нет, знаете, потому что это же что-то из прошлого, да, коммунизм. Ну а как это может быть в будущем?
Может быть, он вернется, может, это как бумеранг? Отправить?
This guy's like, it was in the past. How could it be in the future? Nothing in the past could ever come back in the future.
Сейчас
Я
обратно
не
вернется.
думаю, что что-то старое возвращается в современное общество.
Я думаю, что даже родится нечто новое, какой-то строй общества. Как раз вот именно мы возьмем самое лучшее от капитализма, самое лучшее от коммунизма и построим что-то новое.
Хорошо, давайте подтвердим, что вы ненавидите американцев.
Я не ненавижу американцев.
Вот у вас есть большая красная...
Какой-то строй.
Что-то...
Может быть, он вернется.
Sorry.
Может, это как бумеранг? Отправили, сейчас
Я
обратно
не
вернется.
думаю, что что-то старое возвращается в современное общество.
Я думаю, что даже родится нечто новое, какой-то строй общества. Как раз вот именно мы возьмем самое лучшее от капитализма, самое лучшее от коммунизма и построим что-то новое.
Хорошо, давайте
That's a dude who does not read theory. For the record.
подтвердим, что вы ненавидите американцев.
Я не ненавижу американцев.
Вот у вас есть большая красная кнопка, вы на нее нажимаете, и все ваши деньги уходят.
Unless he means like, unless he means, or he's a pure Hegelian. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and he's probably happy. That's true. That is true. Communism and capitalism are contradictory. I don't know if you can mix the two. Will America ever become socialist or have some socialist implications? America already has socialization to a certain degree. Can you elaborate on this dude doesn't read theory? Isn't it possible there's a system we haven't conceptualized yet where there is better than both communism and capitalism for post-internet humanity? I mean, sure, but one is there's constant revisionists who look to. I am one, by the way. Like I am not like a orthodox Marxist. So there are people constantly revising Marxism and coming up with or trying to modernize it. But having said that, I think what the people are saying, the inherent contradictions there between, it's like two contradictory systems of organizing the economy, because one is about accumulating wealth. One is about extracting surplus value from the workers, the labor of the workers, and distributing those in the form of profits to the capital owning class. And the other is about making sure that that does not happen. So that's why I say I'm a democratic socialist. I don't even say anything. I just say I'm a leftist. I don't really care about any of the I don't really care about any of the specific terms, especially because I don't care about any of that. I am an anti-capitalist. I believe that anyone who is against capitalism is good. That's obviously there's some bad people. There's some fucking idiotic takes on the anti-capitalist side, but ultimately I think capitalism is a far greater existential threat to the future of the planet, or not necessarily the planet, but like more so the humans living on this planet than anyone else. Yeah, Nazballs aren't real. That's not a real thing. Like this fucking meme, internet memetics. Okay? Well, we remember that the U.S., for all her grandeur, took equipment from Italy, worst hit by COVID-19, refused to lift sanctions preventing delivery of medications to Iran, reimposed sanctions on Cuba, increased sanctions on Venezuela, and took solace by renaming it the Chinese virus. Yeah. What is your problem with a social democracy? Social democracies are still capitalist. Therefore, regardless of how much improvement occurs in social democracies as far as the rights of workers being advocated for, or comfortable social safety nets that are supposed to help the needy or create a base level of material equality, even if there isn't a material equality, social democracies are inherently isolationist, I guess, or inherently selfish. What I mean by that is they still rely on the exploitation of third world labor. And as soon as the exploitation of third world labor becomes a little bit more difficult and the bottom line of corporations are impacted by it, because, I don't know, the third world country starts developing a little bit too much and now labor is more expensive, well, then you start getting hit with austerity in your own country. So you're still susceptible to the same internal problems in these countries as a consequence of austerity. Sweden is a great example of this, with anti-immigrant sentiments, things of that nature. But no matter which way you cut it, social democracies are great. I think social democracies are great. I think that social democracies are the first step towards more socialization. It's an absolute necessity in the United States. It's the best way to advocate for anything here, if you ask me, in the absence of like a strong Communist Party or trade union support, to at least build out the infrastructure to be able to make radical change one day. Now, having said that, social democracies, no matter which way you cut it, like I said, still absolutely rely on the exploitation of the global south. What do you say to the argument that a planned economy could never work because of the sheer volume of logistical decisions that the state would have to make? I mean, Walmart is a planned economy. Amazon is a planned economy. I don't get this argument. If the U.S. turns socialist, wouldn't it also rely on third world exploitation? Because it still would be importing things, obviously. There is no turning socialist without... Socialism has always been and always will be an internationalist movement. There is no socialism in a single place. Whether it be a developing country that has been isolated from the rest of the global markets by United States sanctions, or whether it be a fucking dominating power that decides to be socialist one day magically, I guess. There is no socialism in one country. It has never existed, and it will never fucking exist. Okay? It just doesn't work that way. That's why it's the international workers of the world, not fucking, you know, workers of Idaho Unite. The Idaho workers of adopts Trotsky's theory, shits on Trots. Yawn. You have literally built your entire platform on Twitch on a huge lie. You claim on a daily basis that we would game early. Early gaming never arrives. How much longer can you live this lie? Gaming when? If you believe that socialism is inherently international, doesn't that make you a trot? Like, I think that the only way to get to an international socialist movement is by building socialism in a powerful country like the United States. That's my take on it. Obviously, in order to arrive at an international socialist movement, you have to at least at the very beginning have a near socialist state. That's pretty idealist, no? Well, the more idealist you become, the more closer to anarchist you are. The more fucking practical or pragmatic you become, the more Stalinist you are. Such is the nature of leftist thought. That's pretty idealist. No, obviously a country can be socialist without every other country being socialist. Just usually capitalist countries place sanctions on it so hard to trade. Hypothetically, they could just operate similarly. That's why I said America. Either a pan-European movement and a pan-American movement has to develop some form of socialism in and of itself, and there are great movements towards this. I don't know how successful they will ever be, but DM25 is a great example of this, led by those like Yanis Varoufakis. I said Yanis Varoufakis. But try Sweden. Sweden is not socialist. It's a social democracy. Assuming anarchism is idealist rather than completely practical, shaking my head. Come on, man. Come the fuck on, man.
Угнетенному классу. Вы на нее нажмете?
Все мои деньги?
Да.
Прямо сейчас?
Да, с карточки спишутся.
Ну, например, всем африканцам или, не знаю, людям, которые приехали на заработок.
То есть африканцев в Америке вы сейчас назвали все угнетенный класс.
Это афроамериканцы, это уже другой народ. Избалованный цивилизацией, скажем.
Вы на нее нажмете?
Конечно, у меня нет денег. Мне нечего терять.
Да.
Почему да?
Да, еще заработаю.
Нажали бы?
Да нет, не нажал бы. По той простой причине, что по опыту вот каких-то там этих всяких бездомных и прочих, ну, грубо говоря, эти деньги уйдут никуда.
No,
Почему нет?
because if I had a lot of money, I would spend it for myself and for my family, for my close people.
Окей, вот и все вопрос.
Fucking own, dude.